Welcome to Skill Sprint with me, Chris Webber. This video is a quick highlight reel of my latest episode of the Commercial Edge podcast. I use my notes and scribbles from the full-length conversation to pull out what I feel are the headlines and lessons from my most recent expert guest. Drawing on my experience, this video gives you all the key points without the stories. My hope is that you can use these tips and tricks to unleash the power of your people. I've just finished recording an episode of the podcast with Bradley from a company called Homebound. Really interesting discussion and lots of takeaways for people who are thinking about sustainability, thinking about setting up an organization, but also some general leadership and other tips around managing your time. It's well worth listening to. And the big takeaway from me was about planning ahead. What he's taken from his lessons over the last few years came from not always thinking about the future, just getting up and starting. And there's a big benefit that we have in getting on with stuff, but there's also huge benefits from thinking ahead and thinking what the challenges are. And I've got some points that I just noted down during the episode that I think are well worth key takeaways, and I'm sure that if you want to listen to the episode, you'll get a lot more out of it. And the first thing was about having their own strategy. And when they set up the business, cost was important, and they went to the market and went to suppliers, and they were negotiating costs of acquisition. What they realized was that because of the business model, the long-term viability of furniture was much more important. It wasn't just about getting it cheap. It was about finding something that was great quality and that would last. And therefore, the adage of buy cheap, buy twice was a problem for them. And they were then looking for partners who built quality and that they weren't trying to nickel and dime over price. And I think that's a really interesting insight around the strategy of the organization. I also loved how they built the business. They actually researched an opportunity. This was not something that he was passionate about. He went with his business partner, they looked around, and they thought about what are the big issues, what are the big organizations, what's trending right now in cities around the world that hasn't reached here yet. And I love that. And he came out with, some consumer insights, some consumer trends and pressures. And often we see these global trends and we think about them, but how often do we take them and really focus on what that creates for me as an opportunity? And I love that they actually looked at, with a blank sheet of paper, what business can we start based upon what's happening in the world. The other lesson that I liked was that they started to do it. They didn't go and ask other people to give them their money and to risk their chances. They put their own money in first. And they proved the concept. They made some early mistakes. They got those things out of their system so that they then had a track record. They had proven it, and they had skin in the game when they went to look for other investors. And they got the little kind of barriers out of the way of going to market. They weren't just relying on other people to deliver value for them, to deliver the money that they needed. Then it came to getting their investment. And his biggest insight, and I love this, was pushing for a no. Getting people to say no to whether they want to invest in that organization. Can you imagine the challenge of that? That we realized that getting venture capitalist funding is the same as selling a product or service. You're selling your business to somebody else. He did cold calling. He locked himself in a room. And the real insight was that instead of ruling people in, he really tried to focus on ruling people out. Because when they said no, it focused his mind on things. And I think that we spend too much time as optimistic salespeople pushing for a yes. And I know that's hard, but challenge yourself to push for a no. Get your customer to say, no, I'm not ready for this. Because the other insight was not now. he also talked about the need to understand what's important to them. And he knows that venture capitalists are keen not to miss out on a good deal. But equally, they've got areas of strength, they've got things that they're interested in, they've got sectors that they know well. And so understanding and empathizing with them was much easier to have those conversations and also to read their reactions, because you can start to see what's working and what's not working. And then the final thing was about understanding customer insights. He sells to two sorts of customers, the consumer who would rent for themselves, but also to businesses who rent on behalf of others. And these two have very different needs. One of the key elements of the business is sustainability. Consumers are much less interested in sustainability than they are in the furniture and its flexibility. Whereas the business-to-business customers, wow, they really care about sustainability. And so he's got different strategies and different communication messages for the different customers that he deals with. And he's not trying to find a one-size-fits-all model. Some real deep thinking about the challenges and different ways of going to market. His key tips for anyone in the same boat, simple stuff. First one, get a CFO. Cash, huge challenge for his business because he sells rental. Money comes in over years, not in one big sale. And so managing cash flow, incredibly important. One of the best things he did was find a CFO, he said. And the second thing was about legalities and rules. Knowing the policies and rules and regulations that affect your industry and making sure that you tick those boxes. Such a simple mistake, but can undermine any new activity, any new idea. So there's so much there within this episode, I think, to take away. And I think that if you're really interested in leadership and founding businesses and growing new ideas and sustainability, it's well worth listening to. So look us up, look up the episode when it's out there. It's Bradley from Homebound in the sustainability. And while you're there, why not subscribe to the rest of the podcast series and listen to the whole of the podcast. And hopefully there's much more there for you to take away. Well, what could you do differently as a result of what you've just heard? Find me on LinkedIn and let me know. For more like this, and to join in the conversation, search the Commercial Edge podcast wherever you listen to your content. Want to unleash the power of your people? Subscribe to the newsletter, link below. See you soon.